little bit about identifying and tracking theme, moral, and main idea. So probably words you've all heard before. It's a refresher, no worries. If not, we're going to get more kind of into detail about not just what they are, but how to find them when you're reading a text. Okay, so the first little activity here is just to take a guess what the difference between theme and moral is. It's okay if you're not sure, just make something up, but something written is better than nothing. And I'll block your names out so don't feel the pressure. So what do you think the difference between theme and moral is? Or if you do know what it is, what is it? What's a theme? What's a moral? Just take a guess. If I ask you for the theme of the story, what's the theme of the story? What do I mean by that? Or what do I mean by moral? It's the moral of the story. Nobody?
I'm
We
typing.
got a minute to
I'm
answer.
typing.
Okay. Somebody pull through for me here. Okay. Good. So people just take your guesses. See what you think it is. That's why we're here anyway, is to learn what it is. So it's okay if you don't know. Only 1, 2 people want to participate today. There we go. Theme, central idea. Good. Good. Some good ideas here. Very nice. I like what I'm seeing. Okay, so we do have some ideas or some understanding so far. Seem familiar with the words. So these were some good guesses or some good information. So on your notes now, you should have a spot to kind of fill in this slide as I talk about it. Again, if you don't see it or you need help, just let me know. But this is theme. So theme is the big idea. Theme is the big idea of a text. So it's not plot. It's not a lesson. It's what the story is about, the big idea. It is typically in one word or a very short phrase about what the story is about. Okay, so I'll read it through this again while you guys kind of fill in those guided notes. This is that very first section on theme. Theme is the big idea, not a plot, not a lesson. And it's usually one word or a very short phrase about what the story is about. And the reason that we're going to go through each one is because theme and moral sometimes that's usually what people get confused. But to be clear again, theme is not the lesson. It's not the big takeaway lesson that maybe you apply to your own life. And it's usually this one word or short phrase. And I'll show you some examples in just a second here. All right, I'm going to click forward. If at the end you need to go back to a slide to fill in anything in, I can give you guys the code or I can go back myself. Just make sure you're filling it in as you go. So some common themes in general. Again, you'll notice on the Nearpod here, themes are one word or a very short phrase about what a story is about. So coming of age, growing up, family, friendship, relationships, memories, illnesses, survival, identity. These are words that sum up what a story or a text or even a song could be about. And they are what we call universal. So if something is universal, it means it can be applied to multiple stories. So for instance, when you guys were doing your song lyric annotation activity, a few of you might have had a song that the theme was relationships, right? Like for me, I had picked Justin Bieber's song Intentions. Maybe someone else picked a song by a different artist, and the theme of that song might have also been about love and relationships. So themes can be applied to multiple different stories, texts, songs. It's not just for that one story. Any questions so far? Is that making sense? Take the silence as a yes.
No.
No, go ahead.
Um, what?
You there? If you have a question, you might be muted again because I can't hear if someone has a question.
So are we on the next one, the next part? We're on the next part, right?
I think this might still be, let me say, under that first slide. There might not have been anything. There might have been a spot to write universal. They are universal, can be applied to multiple stories. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So theme is all going to have its that first two sections. You didn't have to write down all these examples. Does that make sense? Let me pull it up too.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up the notes too. Yeah, so in this spot here, you would write they are universal and can be applied to many different stories. Sorry about that. I just combined it under one for that first part. So again, being universal means it's not just for one story. It can go for many stories, many texts. Alrighty. So now we're on that next section where it says, how do you find theme on your notes? So hints are everywhere in the story. So when I ask you to find the theme of something, which is going to be the case for many different things, many different stories and books, their hints are going to be everywhere throughout the story, and there might be more than one theme, right? Usually there's one or two big themes and then a few supporting ones, and we'll get more into that. But you find theme by looking in the details. So usually this topic shows up again and again throughout the story. So again, with my example from the song the other day that we looked at, Justin Bieber in Intentions keeps bringing up his love for his wife and how much he values her and intends to do for her. It came up over and over again. So again, I was able to figure out, okay, this is what the big idea, the big takeaway is from the song is that he really values their relationship. So the theme would have been relationship. Theme is also in the sentences and in the scenes. In movies, right? The same sort of things might keep popping up over and over again, same sort of topics. In the sentences, similar words could pop up again and again, and that could fill you in on what the theme might be. Theme can also be found through the characters, so how they change, how they react to things. Thinking back to our short story yesterday, and you're going to practice with this today. Melinda Alice is just like an evil, horrible person, and they kept making sure that we knew that, right? In her character, those traits came up over and over again. So when you're thinking about the theme of that story later today, really think about her as a character and what that kind of brought up in terms of the big idea of the story. And usually theme goes all the way through from start to finish, at least the primary themes do. So the big themes you'll see throughout the entire story or entire time you're reading or watching or listening to something. It won't just be on one or two pages. Again, there are sometimes other smaller themes that pop up, and those are good to mention and know, but those big themes and the big takeaways, those will be continuous throughout the story. I'll give you guys a second to catch up on your notes, but are there any questions so far on theme or how you could find it? we are going to practice today in class. I'm going to move forward, but again, I can come back at the end if people need to fill things in. Alrighty. So then we're going down to learn now about the moral. So switching gears a little bit, moral is the lesson of the story. So again, theme has nothing to do with lesson. Moral is the takeaway, the lesson of the story, what you can take and even apply to your own life. So for examples, these sometimes can be those little phrases that we hear. Treat others how you want to be treated. Always tell the truth. I put in a picture here of some big Disney morals that came right from those books and stories and movies. So Hakuna Matata, there's the moral of The Lion King, right? Don't worry about a thing. What else is here? Reach for the sky, just keep swimming. Those takeaways that could be applied to your own life. And usually they're longer than just a word or two. They're actually a full sentence, they're a phrase that sums up what you learned in the story, what the lesson is. So theme is the big idea in a word or two, and moral is the lesson of the story.
So then I was right.
Yes, you were. A few of you were right, actually. And morals can be applied to other stories as well, but not always. Like, for instance, you can apply these to really whatever you wanted to, but Hakuna Matata, that's very specific to the Lion King. And then you could take out and apply to other things in your life or to other stories. But again, this is something that you learned from the story itself, and now you bring out and apply to your own life. Okay. All right, so there isn't a spot for this on your notes because I just wanted you guys to listen and make sure you're really taking it in because again, theme, moral, main idea, this comes up all the time in English. And I find often people just really don't recognize the difference or figure out or know how to figure out how to get down to the difference. So I'm hopeful that most of you at least are familiar with the story of the tortoise and the hare. So the plot of the story is that the hare is very fast. He's projected to win. He brags that he's going to win no matter what. But because he ends up being so full of himself and so sure that he's going to win, he takes a nap. And the tortoise, who is going really slowly and of course is way behind, doesn't take a nap and ends up passing the hare because the hare fell asleep. So the tortoise keeps going and he wins, right? So the moral of this story, the lesson that we learn, and that I think you probably are familiar with hearing, probably heard it as a kid, slow and steady wins the race, right? This is where that comes from, that saying. And that's the lesson that we could take away from this story. Okay, so there's nowhere on your notes for that. But now I want you to think about it. If the moral is slow and steady wins the race, what could the theme for the tortoise and the hare be? What would a theme be? So if the moral is slow and steady wins the race, that's the lesson. What would the theme be? So I gave you the lesson, I gave you the moral, and you tell me what you think a theme might be. Make sure you use your notes too that you just took. So if I gave you the moral, look at what theme is and see if you can give me a theme. Come up with a theme. I want everyone to try and answer, okay? It's okay if you don't get it. That's why we're here. Okay, so it looks like we're still a little confused. That's okay. So what I'm going to do real quick on Nearpod is I'm going to go back to the theme slide a second. Okay, no worries. Okay, so again, thinking about the tortoise and the hare is we said that the lesson of the story that the hare who had been full of himself and fell asleep ends up losing the race and the turtle who was very slow wins it. Okay, so the lesson that we took away is the one that I said out loud is slow and steady wins the race. Now I'm asking you to think about the theme of that story. So remember, theme is not the lesson. So if you said slow and steady wins the race, that's the lesson, right? That was the moral that I gave to you. A few people, I think, talked about the turtle being slow and falling asleep. That's plot details. Okay, so that tells us something about the plot. I'm looking for the theme, which is the big idea of the story, which is a one word about what that story is all about. So what is one word or a very short phrase that sums up what the tortoise and the hare is all about? So look at some of these common themes again. Family, growing up, identity. These are what themes look like. And the theme for the story might not be on this page, so don't go off of this list, but use these to help you. These are what some themes look like. Okay, so what do you think a theme, and somebody can and shout it out. Tell me what you think a theme might be.
The hare got caught.
He did, but that's more so plot, right? Like that tells us something that happened to the hare in the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he got full of himself. And what did the turtle end up doing?
He won.
He won, right? So the tortoise and the hare, that story is all about what?
Never giving up.
Yeah, there you go. Never giving up. What's another word for never giving up? What are some other words for that? If you never give up, you're what?
I don't really know.
Anyone else want to help out? So if you never give up, what are you filled with?
Hope.
Okay, so hopefulness, never giving up. The turtle is, I'm thinking of the word determined. Any other words popping into your head now? Determination, never giving up. Hopefulness might work a little bit for this, right? But these are one-worded answers that sum up what this story is about. And do those words apply only to the tortoise and the hare?
No.
No, right? They could be applied to other stories too, which is the point of the theme, is it's not just for this story. Okay, so it's okay that maybe it's going to take a little while, a little practice. That's why we're doing this. But keep in mind that theme is one word and it shouldn't have anything to do about the plot line. So nothing about the characters or the actions that take place. That'll come later on. All right, so theme is one word. And in this case, I think determination, never giving up, those work perfectly. Skip that. All right, so if you're still feeling a little unsure about theme, we are going to practice it still, so don't worry, but we are going to keep going on those guided notes. So what is main idea? So this should be the next section now. So main idea is what I think some of us were saying, which is some of the plot from the story. So that the tortoise, who is slow, ends up winning because the hare is full of himself. That's plot. That goes more with main idea. So the main idea of the story tells us what the story is mostly or mainly about, usually one sentence summary, right? So it's the point that the author is trying to make based on the plot of the story. So the example from The Tortoise and the Hare would be the main idea that the tortoise, who starts off the race slowly, eventually beats the arrogant hare, who falls asleep before crossing the finish line. That's the main idea, the main point of the story. That's what the author story is all about. Okay, so main idea does relate more to plot, whereas the other two try and stay away from just talking about what's happened in the story. And we're going to practice all of these. So again, if you're feeling like you're lost or you're not getting it, we're gonna keep going here.